All right, well, good morning. Welcome to Florence High School and Elk Grove Unified School District. I'm Chris Hoffman. I am the proud superintendent of Elk Grove Unified. In Elk Grove, we believe in a connected kid is a successful kid, and we live by that mantra. And we've been sitting around today listening to some of our former kids and some of our kids who are off at college and coming back and mentoring our current kids. And those kids are connected, and it's an amazing thing. You're going to hear a little bit about, we've learned a little bit more about Improve Your Tomorrow, which is an amazing program started by Michael Lynch and Michael Casper. And they call me their mentor from time to time, which I'm very proud to be. But these two young men are making a difference every single day in the lives of young people. And when the governor shared this idea of a California Men's Service Challenge, it's like, that's interesting. I think that is going to build upon what we've been doing here in Elk Grove Unified in partnership with IYT. I think it's a great opportunity for young people to be mentors and serve others, which is going to greatly impact those that are being served. But in my experience, the people that do the mentoring grow as much and sometimes even more. And so the work that we're talking about today, I couldn't be more proud to be part of it, little bitty part of it, but very excited, again, excited to have you here at Florence High School and Elk Grove Unified. I do want to do a couple shout outs very quickly. Bree Bahar, who is the principal of Florence High School, has allowed us to do this here today. So Bree, thank you very much. My board of trustees, we couldn't do any of this work without them, and we do have three of them with us today. Our board president, Michael Vargas, and we have Susan Davis and Jennifer Ballerini. So very proud to have you here to kick this off, and I'm here to introduce Josh Friday with the Go Serve. So Josh, you're up.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you for having us here today for this very special day. And as the Chief Service Officer for the State of California and Director of the Governor's Office of Service and Community Engagement, I appreciate everyone being here today, especially our service members, our mentors, our brothers who are here today stepping up for their community. And as a father of three, I am also deeply grateful to the partners who are standing here today. As a father of three boys, I'm deeply grateful to Governor Newsom for signing an executive order to support our young men and our boys, a comprehensive effort in the state of California to provide purpose and meaning and connection and responsibility and community. And this is a much-needed effort. This is a much-needed statewide effort at a time when suicide rates among young men are growing. Young men are 3 times as likely to die by suicide than young women. Also at a time when college rates of young men are going down. At a time where in California, men are more likely to be unemployed and less likely to volunteer in their community. More likely for every one young man who steps up to serve, to be part of Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, the California Service Corps, there are 2 women who step up for this very same program. And why does that matter? It matters because we have organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Improve Your Tomorrow, Mentor California, and many others that have long waiting lists of boys. Boys in need of a big brother, boys in need of a mentor, boys in need of a role model, boys in need of love and to be seen, and they don't have it. Today, we take an important step to fix this. Today, California is launching the California Men's Service Challenge, calling on 10,000 young men throughout our state to step up and serve their community, to be mentors and tutors and sports coaches and leaders every single day. And today, and tomorrow, and every single day in the Governor Newsom's administration, we are going to be sending a very clear and a very powerful message to our young men. We need you. We need you to do the hard and critical work in our community of disaster relief, of wildfire mitigation, of coaching sports, of mentoring, of tutoring in our classrooms, of protecting and rehabilitating our land. We need you, and we have created now paid service opportunities through the California Service Corps and volunteer opportunities with our partners. Whether you have a weekend or a year to give. So if you are willing to give an hour, a weekend, or a year to serve, we've created opportunities for you by going to mensservicechallenge.com. And if you go there, you will find opportunities with our incredible partners that we've brought together, school districts and professional sports teams and organizations, incredible organizations like Improve Your Tomorrow, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Mentor California, the YMCA, the Giants Community Fund, Junior Giants, and many more. And they will talk about today the need for male mentors and coaches and tutors and leaders. And so let me just finish quickly with this before I introduce our next speaker. When I was younger, I was very lucky. I had the chance to serve in the armed forces. I had the chance to be part of a mission in the military, to be part of something bigger than myself. To know that when I put on that uniform, especially my Navy whites, that I mattered, that I was needed. Well, now with the California Men's Service Challenge, we are sending a message to an entire new generation that you can be part of a mission, that you are needed, you can be part of something bigger than yourself, and that you matter. So for everyone who can, please join our challenge, help shape our future communities, help shape your future, by going to mensservicechallenge.com, and we are also looking for more partner organizations to help deploy these young men. So go today. California needs you, and we need you in a big way. Y ahora algo para nuestras familias que hablan español. California está lanzando el California Men's Service Challenge, haciendo un llamado a 10,000 hombres jóvenes a ser mentores, entrenadores, tutores, servir y liderar en sus comunidades. A los jóvenes, te necesitamos. Únete al reto y visita mensservicechallenge.com hoy. Gracias. And now I have the honor of introducing the executive director of Mentor California, an incredible partner of ours, an inspirational mentor himself, my brother, Marcus Struther.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you to Governor Newsom for putting this forward. It is your vision, your work, and your guidance that is mentoring all of us to do this work at a very high level. So thank you. One of the things as a statewide organization Mentor California has is a unique opportunity is we get to work with youth development and mentoring organizations across the state. We currently support over 300 youth development and mentoring orgs who are doing this work at a high level. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, all across the state, Improve Your Tomorrow, all across the state, and many folks in Fresno, Modesto, Humboldt County, all the way down to SoCal who are doing this work at a very high level. And what we know is they have opportunities for young men to serve. Sometimes those opportunities look like regular day in schools. Sometimes it's after-school programs during our expanded learning time. Sometimes it's summer programming. And a lot of the times it's just right outside their doorstep in the neighborhood and community where they were raised and where they come from. What we are looking for today is young men who are ready to step up into those opportunities, who are ready to mentor, and who understand what mentoring is and what it means and how it can touch and change the lives of young men and themselves as the mentor. What we know is that currently, right now, 1 out of every 3 young people are growing up without a caring adult or person that they can call a mentor. What we know on the other side of that is that a young person that is mentored will most likely succeed in school. They will most likely find their career trajectory. they will most likely step into leadership roles. And what we also know is that young men who know that they are loved, that they are seen, that they are heard, well, at the end of the day, they just do better. So what we are calling on is 10,000 young men to step up and help us engage the disengaged, help us connect the disconnected. We need young men who are ready to step into this space and be heart healers, dream defenders, and legacy builders so that we can bridge this gap of opportunity and create a California where young men grow and thrive. We are appreciative of everyone who is here today, and we are calling on more of you to show up. So after you hear or see or learn about this initiative, we just ask that you get on board. Our young men need people who love them. Our young men want to be loved. And when we step into those roles, we can change lives forever. I'm excited to be a part of this. Our Mentor California team is excited to be a part of this. Our national office is excited to be a part of this as well. And we are excited to be with one of our most amazing partners, Improve Your Tomorrow. And you already heard a little bit about one of the co-founders, Michael Lynch, but he's going to come up and tell you a little bit more about himself. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to him and call on Michael Lynch to come up and talk a little bit more about this great initiative.
Brother just put a lot of pressure on me. Now, but Michael Lynch, co-founder and CEO, I think it's important to note that I'm a co-founder. You know, the co-founder who's behind me, he's a little better looking, he's a little taller, so he told me I had to come and speak today and represent the brotherhood. It's supposed to be a joke. Joke's not funny. No, but thank you all so much. You know, my dad was my baseball coach. He was my football coach. He was my basketball coach. He was someone who was consistently there. He raised me and my siblings largely by himself. And I grew up in an environment where there were a tremendous amount of people who had the ability to be able to succeed, but so few of us had an opportunity to be able to do it. That's why we created Improve Your Tomorrow. That's why we focus on helping get more young men of color to and through college. But we can't do that without service. Service is the key, impactful component of how we're able to move young men from being average, to being good, to being great. But what we see right now across society, converging economic and technological factors, societal messaging around masculinity, more time spent online, as the governor said, and less time spent building community, have caused deep-rooted issues amongst boys and men. For young men and boys, the result of those circumstances can be seen in rising rates of suicide and drug abuse. This is why it is so important for male mentors to be able to step up to the challenge, to be able to serve, to be able to impact a life. You heard it earlier today. The impact is not only on the mentee, it's the mentor. One of our young men, Jalen, talked about, he's a mentor at one of our high schools. He said, listen, I can't keep telling brothers to go and do their homework if I'm not doing my homework as a college student. There's a responsibility to when you are mentoring, to make sure that you are rising up to the level that you need to be able to be. Young men need to be shown they matter and they're loved, but also be given the opportunity to contribute. One of our young men is named Diego. He just graduated from Vista Nueva High School in Del Paso Heights. He shared his story earlier summer with me where he had 4 friends commit suicide while he was in high school. Can you imagine being 18 years old, attempting to walk across the stage, but having so few of your friends no longer there anymore? This is a real reality young men, young people face, not only in Sacramento, but all across the state of California. So we have to do something different as a state. We have to be able to step up. That's why we appreciate the governor's leadership to be able to call California, to call boys and men to be able to begin to serve and to serve purposely. For any young men or boys who feel like they're disconnected, know that you are loved. You belong. We see you, and we need your voice. Next, I have an opportunity to introduce one of my mentees, a young man named Adam. Adam joined IYT April 6, 2013. 17 young brothers at Valley High School came to the room on a Saturday to join what we call now Improving Tomorrow, right, the brotherhood. He was an average student at best. I remember, one Saturday, after a couple of Saturdays, I was like, Adam, listen, man, you clearly, man, a smart kid. Why don't you become an honor roll student, right, and get a 3.0 GPA? He was like, Mike, if I was to do that, my mom would expect it every single time. So his ceiling wasn't that he could not do, it was at times, right, the environment and the container that was around him. He went on to continue at IYT, graduate from UC Merced, become a mentor with us, serve, then become a program manager, right, to serve, and now he's a program director, helping to lead. Adam, to me, is what this initiative is about. It's calling our young men to be able to step up, to be able to serve, so we can solve some of our society's greatest challenges. Next up, I have Adam Allen.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Adam Allen. Similar to like Michael just mentioned, I was originally from Bakersfield, California, moved to Sacramento about 2013, and I was attending Valley High School. I was in a place of like just rebellion. I was alone. I'm the youngest of three brothers, and it was just me and my mom dealing with a lot of issues: housing insecurity, food insecurity, job insecurity for her, just a lot of things going on. And it just made me want to rebel. It made me want to not do well in school. It made me not want to do well for myself in general. And a lot of that changed my second semester when I was introduced to IYT. Michael Lynch and Michael Casper were my mentors, and they came in and they just introduced something new to me. To see somebody be successful from like the same communities that I was living in, walking in, and coming back to give it was not only inspiring, but it motivated me to do better. It took time. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of support from them, a lot of support from just the organization in general, teachers. But over time, it hit me, and I realized that the importance, the value of not only education, but the importance of having a mentor and having somebody that I can look to, that I know is successful, that I know have been through similar roads as me, and then now coming back to give to their community to inspire young brothers like myself to do better. So for me, it took about 3 years, and as Michael mentioned, around that third year, I started to get those good grades. My mom expected it, and it became a normal thing. But I was still discouraged, still nervous, still thinking I took too long, and ultimately ended up applying to so many schools because I didn't think I would be successful. I didn't think I would be able to get in. And I got into 13 of them, attended UC Merced, got a bachelor's in history, and as Michael mentioned, immediately came back to serve because I knew for me, I wouldn't have made it to college. I wouldn't have been able to go to college. I wouldn't have been successful. I wouldn't have been able to get through college if it wasn't for the support that I received from my mentors, from IYT, and from people that I've met that continue to pour into me. From graduating, I came back and served as a mentor, became a mentor, served, then became a program manager, and was able to serve at the high school that I graduated from. And for me, it was like another motivating factor of like just being able to give back to those communities that I once walked in. And I wanted to be able to impact a brother the same way I was impacted. Fast forward to today, being able to be a mentor, being able to serve, being able to give back to my communities, I've realized the importance of just how important it is for a brother, for definitely in marginalized communities, to have somebody there for them to look to, somebody there for them to help them, and somebody there to help them tap into that potential that they wouldn't think they have. So I ask you today to just please, young men out there, if you are able, to just please join this initiative. Take the chance to be the opportunity to help a young man be inspired, to become something, and to be better for themselves and their community. So I thank you, and I now have the pleasure to introduce the Governor, Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Adam. Well done, man. You said he had like a 1.2 grade point average? What the hell is that? Adam, thank you for your example. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for painting the picture and coloring in of what this is all about and animating us in a very positive way. In so many ways, Adam's story is a story that's shared by so many of the people you see behind me, and it's a story that needs to be shared. It's a story of optimism. It's a story of faith and devotion to the cause of restoration, repair. At a time when we feel so broken, we feel so divided, we feel increasingly so fearful about our fate and future. Today, we're celebrating success. We're celebrating leadership. we're celebrating in the spirit that the superintendent and the spirit of Marcus and obviously Michael and others have expanded on, the spirit of love, of relationships, of being seen, of being heard. A word that I heard around the table is pouring love, pouring that sense of confidence into people that are broken, that may not feel that they have it. But this notion of being seen and heard is profoundly important at a time when people don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. They feel increasingly isolated. They feel increasingly alone. We have an epidemic of loneliness. And so much of that is manifesting and metastasizing online in very profound and consequential ways. And last week only underscored that further. And so this is a timely initiative. It's an initiative that frankly began to take shape about this time last year when I was given a national poll that someone shared. A simple question that was asked to young men and boys, where 69% of them were asked a question of whether or not they align to the sentiment that people don't care if boys are okay. 70% of boys said people don't care. We have a crisis in this country of men and boys, and for decades, candidly, we've neglected it because some of us have been scared to enter into the fray, because somehow we felt it was a zero-sum game, that somehow if we're focusing on the needs of men and boys, somehow we're taking away from our advocacy around gender equality, taking our advocacy away from women and girls. So you can understand in many ways that tension. But it's not a zero-sum game. And this crisis has become a crisis not just for men and boys, but for women and girls as well. Ask any parent, ask any mom about this issue. They understand. And so it's time for us to be understood that we now are moving affirmatively with an executive order that we signed many months ago with a strategy, with a plan to address this issue. And today is part of that strategy. Today is part of that plan. We often talk about the importance of, you can't be what you can't see. And it was interesting just in the conversation, the roundtable we had a moment ago, one of the young men said, boy, I really wish my counselor, who happened to be a man, happened to be African American, I wish he was my teacher, because I didn't see many people like him. I just wish I had a little more time with him. It was a reminder that we need to do more to recruit men as teachers. Look at elementary and middle school. Not many men teaching any longer. Look at the areas around mental health. A lot of folks, a lot of men don't feel comfortable in that space. There's so many areas where demonstrably we can move the needle in a way that support women and girls, that continue our championship of gender equality, that continue to address the mis and disinformation around women and girls at the same time, not a zero-sum game. Josh highlighted some of the statistics. The statistics now are even more alarming. He said 1 in 3. It's closer to 1 in 4 now, 4 times rather. 4 times more likely young men are to take their lives than girls. And it's interesting I say young men because young men are taking their lives at a higher rate than middle-aged men. Just think about that. You talk about dropout rates, deaths of despair, addiction, abuse, discipline. You look at graduation rates at the UC and CSU, Adam, and increasingly now the minority is a young man graduating. Women, much higher levels of achievement across the spectrum. So this is a real issue, and we're very grateful that we're not only highlighting the concern, but we're organizing a strategy to address it. And there's no greater, and I'll close on this, no more impactful strategy than the strategy that has been advanced by organizations like IYT, mentor programs that Marcus is supporting up and down the state, AmeriCorps, College Corps, Climate Corps, the work that Josh has been doing. And by the way, I'm proud of Josh Friday. He has built the largest volunteer corps in the United States of America. It's larger than the Peace Corps in the state of California. And that is a point of pride. And he did that from scratch. That was an act of imagination. And he made it real. And that, we hope, continues to grow and flourish for years and years to come. And we met with one of the young College Corps members here. By the way, 450 hours of work, $10,000 we provide in return for their college education. But I think the spirit of mentorship, final words, is that spirit that Josh and others began with, that no one stands taller than when he or she bend down on one knee to lift someone else up. In this notion of contribution being two-way, that as you provide that smile, this guy, that it's infectious, that not only are you benefiting from that, others are benefiting from that. This notion that we're all, dare I say, bound together by a web of mutuality. Divorce is not an option. I'm sorry, Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's not. We have to define the terms of the future. We have to live together across our differences. And shared experiences are the answer. It's not complicated. It's a dignity deficit. There's a deficit of belonging. And volunteerism and mentorship are about finding things we have in common. And it's powerful and it's potent. And the folks behind me are testament to that. So I just want to thank all of you for your inspiration. Thank you for your example. And thank all of those that will hopefully get online, in this case, to go offline, to stand the line, and support one another by volunteering, signing up to organizations large and small, and achieve this goal of 10,000 new mentors in the state of California. We thank you all very, very much for your attention today. Thank you.
Are you doing a photo?
just want to thank Josh Friday again for all his leadership, not just his stewardship in developing this construct and supporting this idea. I also want to recognize, as the bell rings, Brooks Allen, who's leading our efforts to implement the principles and the nuanced details that came from this executive order that we signed a number of months ago. We're working with Richard Reeves, their organization, the Institute for Men and Boys, that has provided a remarkable amount of support and guidance as well. And it's a growing movement with other states and other governors as well to really hone in on practical strategies to address the issue that continues to challenge us in this country. So again, just want to thank you both for your leadership in this effort. Beyond that, of course, we're here to answer any questions.
Governor, in there you were talking about common ground and this issue of essentially young men being disregarded in society, which is something that you connected with Charlie Kirk over. And I wonder just the timing of this announcement and Kirk's death, if there's any correlation and just how Kirk might be inspiring you at all, if he is.
No, I appreciate the question. I mean, I believe in civility. I believe in open hand, not a closed fist. That's why I had Charlie Kirk on my first podcast, and anyone can go and listen to that podcast. He did it in person. We not only had a civil conversation on camera, we had a civil conversation off camera that continued till just weeks ago, where our staffs were connecting and engaging in a very civil way, and I think we need more of that. That said, he'll stand his ground. We stood our ground on things we care deeply about and pushed back where we had, pretty strong disagreements. He had an approach and strategy on issues. We have our approach. But I just think at the end of the day, I said it inside a moment ago, divorce is not an option, period, full stop. We've got to live together across our differences, and there are a lot of differences in this state, this nation, for that matter, the world we're trying to build. And the only way we're going to reconcile those things is by listening to one another. And if you go to that podcast, I hope the one thing that you'll find is two people willing to listen to one another that have very strong points of view that don't necessarily always cross-pollinate, but one point of view I think we did share was love of our family, love of this country, deep, deep, deep love for our children, and hope for a better world. And so that's the spirit that I want to bring to the work that we're doing today. That's the spirit to which I think mentorship and volunteerism, I think that's the spirit that it advances. And it's a cause that should unite us all.
Just to follow up, will his assassination change the way that you approach any campaigns? I know you're not campaigning here, but any campaign in the future, the Prop 50, I know changed.
No,
around and find out title with the event that you're going to have.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I'm the same guy that walked on the tarmac with Donald Trump. I'm the same guy that will pick up his phone call. I'm the same person that sat down, not just Charlie Kirk, with Steve Bannon, with the guy who created this space, language, borders, and culture, Michael Savage, back in the 90s. Was the dominant voice on talk radio, the person that sat down with Newt Gingrich, who was one of the leaders of my recall. I'm that same person.
We have a student here who has a question.
I know, and I appreciate that.
I'm a yearbook student here. I'm a junior. And I was wondering if you had one piece of advice that you would give here at Florida High School, and specifically to the students. What piece would you give?
Learn from, don't follow others. Your expression's unique. Nobody else has it. I think so much time you spend as a junior is comparing yourself to other people, trying to be like someone else. And comparison's the thief of all happiness. And so I think what the world needs is your authenticity. And so I just hope you take a deep breath and discover the most important and powerful thing in the world, and that's who you are, and try not to impress other people.
Governor, you opened your podcast with Charlie Kirk by telling him how much your son idolized him.
Well, overstated, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Okay. Why don't you state it then? How much your son
Recognized him. Yeah.
Him?
No, I said that he wanted to have a picture with Charlie because he was very familiar with him, and so many young boys are.
Okay.
and it was a recognition of the why. Why was Charlie my first guest? Because I recognized his influence, not just in the last election, and how many young men and boys heard the bell and answered the bell in terms of organizing on campuses and supporting the dialogue and the organizational principles that Charlie Kirk was supporting and advancing. And I thought it was important to illuminate that and highlight that. But it was absolutely true that my son, like many kids his age, were not only familiar with Charlie Kirk, they're familiar with Andrew Tate, familiar with people like Jordan Peterson, very familiar with what's happening online and podcasts and what some have referred to, in some cases pejoratively, others in terms of illuminating this manosphere. And I think it's important to understand that. Parents need to understand that. But obviously Charlie Kirk was a master at not only the work he did online, but offline, and his capacity to organize and engage.
If I may, the question was just going to be like if you could talk about how you're processing Charlie Kirk's death with your son, whether it's been.
Well, he called me, and I don't know whose phone he was using, but he called me from school. He heard about it. So, and he said, everybody, Dad's talking about it. And he wanted to know, is he alive? Is he alive? And so it was very impactful. I asked all these young men just a moment ago upstairs, said, how many of you have heard of Charlie Kirk? Every single one of them. How were you processing? I asked them. And they said, it's been difficult, but it was universal condemnation of this horrific and unacceptable act, period, full stop. And it was interesting. I made that point to my son. I said, we just put out a statement to that effect, condemning this very, very clearly and very immediately. We didn't wait around tonally to figure that out. There's right and wrong, and that was the principle that I reinforced with him. But it's just a reminder of how many young people were impacted by this death in a pretty profound way, and continue to be impacted by the images they saw. And you can never unsee what you saw, and how that will impact these kids in this generation in a pretty profound way.
Do you see a counterpart for him on, you talk about his influence on millions of men, some of them conservative, maybe not. Do you see a counterpart, who's more liberal?
Well, I asked him about that. I made the point in our podcast. I said, one of the reasons I want to engage you is success leaves clues. There's power of emulation. My party needs to recognize what you have achieved in this movement, that you continue to grow. And so I was picking his brain in that respect. And it was interesting. You all know that. The response from my party was rather mixed or muted. And I thought that was a mistake. I still do. I think it's important to learn from others, even if you vehemently disagree with them. And it's just been my approach. The reason I, show up on networks that in the past that not every Democrat was showing up on. It's why I engage with people I disagree with. And it's just, it's the way I was, way I was raised. And I just think we're all better off if we do that. And again, it doesn't mean you roll over. It doesn't mean you submit to other people's ideas. It just means you engage in them. And I think that's a very healthy thing.
And this movement for, helping young men connect and rebuild.
I think it's critical. At my own peril of entering into the political frame on this, I think my party has not invested in as much energy as they should in this space that we're highlighting today. And I say that not as someone who's just discovered this. I say this as someone whose wife, a decade ago, did a documentary called The Mask You Live In about this issue. I was in the documentary talking about this issue a decade ago. And she talked about masculinity, the mask you live in. Put on a mask, your face grows into it. And it was interesting the reaction she received after doing a documentary prior on called Misrepresentation. And people say, well, what do men and boys have to do with this? And she made the point in that film, everything. And so I feel like I'm picking up on her work, what Scott Galloway is talking more and more about, what Richard Reeves has been talking a lot more about, what President Barack Obama has been talking about. My Brother's Keepers and other, he had a long podcast with his wife, over an hour, with Michelle Obama on this topic. It's growing, I think, in consciousness. And I would imagine, to your question, it's a fair question. I mean, we've been at this for some time, but had we not been, I think it would be about time that we enter into this conversation. And I think it's a very healthy one, and I think it is part of the quote-unquote answer to how we respond, because we've got to get these kids back. They're very susceptible, young men. They're very vulnerable online. And there's a lot of ideological tendencies, and people weaponize those grievances. And you've seen this. I mean, I've told you all. I've read these, this is separate. But I've read these manifestos from these mass shooters. I mean, they're master classes in the obvious of how these young men, dominantly, almost exclusively, become so radicalized. And they're very open and honest about it. And where they found that information, how they found that information. It should be required reading for every elected official. I don't understand why we don't spend the time to understand these issues more deeply. And so this is long overdue, what we're doing, and I'm grateful to these guys for the work they're doing, and we're just winding up. We're just getting going.
I wanted to ask what the Hispanic community, with the current administration, the current climate, this program that you launched, how can it benefit those boys that are maybe living in migrant families that are illegal or undocumented or are living in fear of their life?
Well, I think part of our rapid response networks are all about volunteers. Our rapid response networks that have been supporting our diverse communities, supporting the work Brooks is doing in an educational system with so many mixed status families. The work that we're collectively doing with Cal Volunteers. We have so many first-generation families and children that are aspiring to be in college, aspiring to support their families, that have the benefits of this program, regardless of their status, which is foundational in our work. And so I think in every way it shapes support, not just a consciousness. And I hope that people that feel fearful, that feel anxious, understandably because of the racial profiling that's happening in this country that has been sanctioned. It's been advanced by the Trump administration, Stephen Miller, and sanctioned and supported by the Supreme Court of the United States on the basis of your skin color, on the basis of the language you speak, that you can legally now be, at least they're asserting, that you could be targeted by ICE, that in communities that feel that kind of assault and affliction, that programs like these, where people want to be connected to something bigger than themselves and have support networks, they become even more important.
Is there an incentive to the volunteer initiative that you are, launching today? Like, how do you actually get young men to get off computers and start working and volunteering?
Well, I love that you asked a question on this, and I'm going to take advantage of answering that, but I want these two to answer. That was exactly the question we asked the young men around the room. And it was interesting. Each one had a different experience. One of them was describing a wonderful experience of just sitting there at 1 in the morning. He said, I was looking up, thinking about, who am I? He seriously said this. He said, what is my life? What's my purpose? And he goes, 10 minutes, in fact, not 10. He said, at 1:11, my phone rang, pinged, and there was a text message. And it was from someone that told me about this program. And he said, literally, as if I was calling for the universe, and all of a sudden it answered. Others talked about how they, through tragedy, felt a sense of obligation not to become the victim and to have agency and shape their own future. Others with family members that were struggling. Others with friends that said, come on, just a few minutes, come on in, walk in. and see what you think of this program. But all of them had one thing in common, and that was what I was not very effective communicating out there, and that is a sense of obligation to give back. And it was the one common theme. And that's perhaps the most beautiful thing. I joked about that young man. He said, this smile. He said, I asked him what their goals were. He said, well, I'll tell you what my goal is, just to smile. And he says, I make a commitment every day to smile once to a stranger. And he goes, I can't. And now, of course, everybody in the room was smiling after he did it. You know, you don't have to aspire to be king or queen or, some, fancy things, just a simple act of kindness, because he said it was a way of seeing someone that may be, in his words, having a tough day, that may be going through a rough patch. And all of a sudden, just that act, that simple act of a smile, made them feel like they mattered, and he cared. Josh?
Thank you, Governor. With this initiative, the state of California is providing significant incentives for young men to be able to serve in their community. Through the California Service Corps, we have paid opportunities, the chance to start a career, the chance to earn skills, the chance to build social capital and professional networks. Through programs like College Corps, we have the chance to provide debt-free pathways for students and young men who step up to serve in their communities. So real financial and economic opportunity is being provided through this initiative. In addition, we are providing what we hear is often the most important incentive, which is the opportunity and the chance for the first time to actually be part of something, to actually feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself and to be able to give back and contribute. The thing that I hear the most from our over 10,000 service members that we currently have across the state, and now we're trying to recruit more, is that when they serve, when they're given a chance to be part of one of these programs or be in IYT or Mentor California or Big Brothers Big Sisters, it's the first time that they feel needed, that they feel like they matter, that they have something that they can contribute. And that's what we're all seeking. And that's why this initiative, that's why the governor calling on us, asking us to do this, more like telling us that we have to do this, because it's important. That's what we're solving, and those are the incentives that we're providing. Brooks?
Final word, Brooks.
No pressure. No, the one thing I would add that I think came through, and the governor talked about this in his comments out there, is, and we heard this from all the students, some of your peers, it was the power of love. And they were talking about really, in terms, you're asking about what gets you offline, they were talking about having that relationship in school. And so much of the research teaches us that in schools, the thing that matters most, and if you look at every youth poll, it talks about knowing that you have at least one adult who cares about you at that school. And that's what we heard in that room, is coming to school knowing that someone cares about you authentically as a person. And one of the speakers talked about, you don't get to the lessons and the facts and figures until they actually understand that teachers, counselors care about you as a person. And that gets you offline, because that gets you engaged. And they talk about those mentorships and those really as-applied service challenges that they're carrying out. And I think that's what should carry us forward, is looking for those bonds, those relationships, those finds a way, connections between all of us and a sense of belonging, and ultimately a relationship-based school is what matters.
Love it. Thank you guys very much.
Hey, Governor.